At this point, we're ready to learn how to save and quit files in Vim. Because I don't want these changes to be reflected in my bash profile, I'm going to try to quit. The way to do that is with :q. You can see here that Vim gives me a warning. It says that there's been no write since last change. Add exclamation point or bang to override. Okay, let's try that. :q exclamation point. Ah, look at that. This explains the most important Vim command. Remember, it's escape :q exclamation point. The escape is there to get us out of insertion mode if we're in insertion mode, but it doesn't do any harm to hit it anyway. And then :q exclamation point quits the file without saving any changes. That means no matter what you do inside of Vim, no matter how much damage you may have caused, if you type escape :q exclamation point, you're guaranteed not to do any permanent harm. Of course, editing text is only useful if we can actually save our edit, so let's hit up arrow to get back to the command that opened the bash profile file and then hit return. You can see a bunch of the things in my file are aliases. Aliases are a useful way of extending your command line shell. So I'm going to hit hit return a couple times, and we're going to define a new alias and then see how to save it and use it. In this case, we're going to make an alias for a particularly useful combination of options to ls. I can open a new tab and show you. You can see this is smaller. This is the default size. Of course, this is a bigger size than I would normally use. You may recall from Learn Enough command line to be dangerous that you can do ls-rtl to list the files in reverse time in long form. So this shows the most recently modified files and directories at the bottom of the listing. If you want to see all the files, you can add an A for all. And if you want to see things like bash history here, these really long strings of digits for the number of bytes, if you want to see that in a more useful human readable form, you can use the -h option. You can see here is 1.8 megabytes. And of course, I'm partial to this command, not only because it's useful, but because it's my last name, ls-hartle. Now, typing ls-hartle is pretty easy for me because I'm used to typing the name Hartle. But it's still nice to have a shorter combination of keys in the spirit of short Unix commands. So we're going to define an alias called lr. As we can see at the bottom here, I've already entered insertion mode. So let's type alias lr equals, and then the string that represents the command we want to alias. So this is ls-hartle. Now we're ready to save these changes, and the way we do that is to press escape to get out of insertion mode and back into normal mode, and then press :W for write. So now let's see how to use this alias at the command line. The way we get out of Vim, remember, is :q. We can put an exclamation point here, but we don't need it because we just wrote out the file, like that. At this point, you might expect to be able to use lr to run ls-hartle. It's the point of an alias, but it doesn't work. It says command not found. And that's because in order to use this alias, we have to do what's called sourcing the bash profile. By using the source command, we'll tell the shell about the alias we just defined. Here we go, up arrow twice, and it worked. By the way, it's useful to know that if you make a mistake, you can type U to undo. So if we reopen Vim, suppose we were to do this and type oops, that's no good. So you can press escape to get out of insertion mode, and then U to undo, like that. In most programs, the command to undo things is Control-Z or Command-Z, depending on the system. But as is usually the case, Vim has its own key bindings.